Anthony Grassi here for College.town at the 2026 NCAA Convention. Happy to sit down with University of Mary Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, Marcus Wagner. Marcus, thank you for joining me today.
Anthony, thanks so much for the opportunity. It's great to be with you.
So we'll start your current role and newness of that current role.
Yes.
You were promoted in November at the end of last year from Associate AD for Mission to Director of Athletics. Walk me through how the last, few months has been as you've stepped into the chair.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity, appreciate the question. It's been a great year. It really has. Certainly at moments feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, but the opportunity to work for the University of Mary prior to taking over and transitioning into the role has proven invaluable, right? The relationships formed on campus and the understanding of how we operate, what our vision is for intercollegiate athletics as well as for the university as a whole has been really beneficial, and so the last year has been really good. You know, we've got a phenomenal staff. Senior staff's fantastic. Our coaches are great. They're top notch, and we've got a resilient group of individuals who really care about our young people, care about our scholar athletes, and care about the university as a whole. And so it's easy to get up and work hard for those people. I think anytime you transition, regardless of the level, regardless of the position, right, you step into the unknown. You don't know what you don't know, and a year certainly marked by growth, but anytime we talk about challenge, right, we talk about it internally with our scholar athletes, with our coaches, that if you're faced with challenge, right, it's a prerequisite for growth. And so to understand that when we step into that space and we can reframe those challenges not as scary bad things, but as opportunities for growth, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And so definitely a year marked by growth. Again, can't say enough about our staff internally. The NSIC staff's been fantastic. The other athletic directors in the conference have been great. Took over for Cooper Jones, who left to join Ed Scott's team at Memphis, and talk about a team that's moving and shaking at that level. Ed's got those guys moving in the right direction, and Coop left the place, in order, right? The house was in order, the table was set, and so it's not like you take over for a train wreck. He was running a top-notch ship, and the opportunity to learn from him, work alongside him, was really invaluable as well. And so then to be able to stay connected with him as a friend and a mentor has been great, and it's been an interesting year, but a really good year.
There aren't many associate ADs for Mission.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Or people who probably oversee Mission as a job title.
Right.
How unique, or how did that provide you a different lens to look through stepping into the chair?
Really good question. So, the University of Mary approaches everything in a unique way, but it certainly approaches athletics in a really unique and thoughtful way. And so the opportunity to step into the role as the Associate Athletic Director for Mission was one that I was eager to say yes to. The position itself, we refer to our development side of things as mission advancement for the University of Mary, and so to marry the mission advancement side of things, the development side of things, fundraising for our athletic department, to marry that with our Greatness Through Virtue Athletic Strategic Plan, which is focused on virtue first formation, virtuous leadership, right? The mission of the university is to serve the needs of the people of the region and beyond, and so to be able to serve in that capacity alongside our other senior staff members, and to be focused on nurturing the culture and also then fundraising to make sure that our dreams can become a reality. Really unique position, as you noted, probably not super popular along the lines of intercollegiate athletics, but definitely a UMary thing, and an experience that I value greatly, and definitely informed some decision making moving into this role, and being able to again understand who we are at the university and how we want to do things and why we're doing the things that we're doing.
Has big announcements come from UMary over the last year?
Yeah.
We'll start with the fact that you guys are pushing to fully fund all 18 of your Division II athletic programs. It's kind of a base. How far off were you from that before that announcement, and where do you sit now?
Yeah, really good question. So, as you remember, Anthony, in the summer of 25, the university formally announced its commitment to the plan to fully fund athletic aid at the University of Mary, and so that's no small thing. As you've noted, we had a handful of sports that were fully funded before. We had a handful of sports that were, within spitting distance, they were pretty close. And then we had, a couple of sports that were a little bit farther off. And so the approach is to make it sustainable for our department to be able to add those funds, and it's a commitment from the university that we're incredibly grateful for. I think it speaks to, I mentioned our athletic strategic plan, Greatness Through Virtue, and it speaks to our integrated approach to athletics, that we don't want to just do one thing well, we want to do all of these things well, but we're going to discern well in that process and take prudent action when the opportunity presents itself, when it's the right opportunity, and again, that discernment part's really important for us. And so, we're into the first phase of that plan, and over the next couple of years here, we'll see all of our sports, that weren't already fully funded, continue to close that gap and find themselves in that fully funded space from an athletic aid perspective.
And the goal is to have all 18 fully funded by
2029 will
29,
be
okay.
2930 will kind of be the launch date for that. And again, some of our programs were already there, some of them are really close, and some of them are going to see some pretty helpful increases in that space. And I think it does tie back into how we approach things. It's an integrated approach, because it's not just to get involved in the arms race of college athletics, right? We want to make sure that whether that's our facility standpoint, whether that's scholarshiping, whether that's recruiting, retention of scholar athletes, of coaches, right? We want to make sure that the experience at the University of Mary is top notch and that we're doing things the right way. And so when we look at how we're doing things and why we're doing things, all of that needs to make sense together. And when you frame it under Greatness Through Virtue, our athletic strategic plan, all of those pieces, right? The plan launched 2015, right? Along with our capital campaign, and so it's been in there for a number of years. It's been on the mind of the university to try to get to that point, and so it's exciting to see us taking those steps in the right direction.
Does that added funding, especially for the sports that weren't fully funded already, change the conversations you have with those coaches about expectations? Because obviously there's not unlimited resources,
right.
And obviously we're not paying every single kid full ride, but the expectation versus investment balance,
right.
is clearly one that happens at all levels of small college athletics,
right.
across all sports, where certain schools may choose to pick a few sports that they can try to go win a national title in. You can't win a national title in everything.
Right.
How does that change the conversation, though, with those sports that weren't fully funded?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question, right? And I think if that's the only part of the calculus that you're using as that equation, or plugging it into that equation, certainly then your expectations would have to change. I think to be able to take a step back and say, the expectations might increase, that we continue to have high expectations, but we're not just out to win a national championship, right? Like we're here to help form young people, to help them become who they were created to be, and so these resources help us on that journey and help to make that a reality. And certainly from the competitive side of things, we want to continue to see, our programs are already, in the top half of the NSIC, right? We're competitive nationally, and so we want to continue to see that be a reality. And so for some of those programs, certainly the expectation, whether that's internal or external, might appear to turn up. But I think, from an administrative standpoint, being able to step into that space with our coaches and be able to say, hey, just because we plug some more dollars in here or have to subtract from here, right? I'm still here for you. Hopefully, you're still here for our scholar athletes, right? And we're gonna continue to live into the mission of the university and the mission of the athletic department. And so, right, the expectations have already been high, and we're not just going to find our identity in wins and losses, but certainly that's something that, right, anytime you're plugging resources into something, right, we want to have appropriate expectations for what the outcomes could be. Because as you mentioned, right, at the Division II level, it's not like every kid then is on a full ride. The NIL space looks markedly different, right? We're still, at the end of the day, we're still a small private faith-based institution, and so there are going to be hurdles. We've got to continue to have a high attention to detail and a great level of care and concern for our scholar athletes, for our resources, for the people that are working for the institution, and so I think it just ties in to that really well.
Beyond that win-loss expectation, how do you evaluate head coaches through the uniqueness of what UMary is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think our athletic strategic plan lays it out really well for us in Greatness Through Virtue. So Certainly wins and losses are a part of it, and we'd be a liar if we said that that's not part of it, right? But I think when you have an idea of what we're aiming for, so we want young people to pursue the objective of sport, which is to win, right? And sport's a great proving ground for growing in virtue and growing in those character traits and habits that athletics likes to focus on. And certainly we focus on that as part of our evaluation tool. But a large portion is the relationships that our coaches are forming and what their culture looks like and how their scholar athletes are involved on campus and in our community, and academics play a piece, and so athletic performance is a key indicator, right? We've got to either continue to take steps in the right direction or remain competitive if that's where we're at. But all of those pieces play a part in the evaluation process, and I think you can get a pretty good feel for those things, in the first 5 minutes of interacting with the program. But then the more time that you spend, in that space, you can continue to drill down on things, and when you've got as resilient and invested group of individuals as we have in our coaches, right? That feedback loops is pretty robust and it's pretty healthy, and so they're going to come to me with ideas, and I'm going to be able to come to them with ideas, and so to be able to come alongside them and have those relationships is really important in that evaluation process.
Do you have a scorecard or a quantitative measure for all of these things? Some of these things are easy to quantify.
Yeah.
Win,
Right.
number, loss, number. You can look at GPA as a number. You can
Right.
look at community service hours as a number.
Right.
Some of these things are not very easily, at least to an outsider,
Right.
quantifiable. So
Right.
how much can you quantify, and how do you try to quantify some of those things that may seem more qualitative, where you just kind of have to have
Right.
the experience of it?
For sure. Definitely more subjective than objective in some areas. And so, right, where we're able in our evaluation process to be objective, certainly we want to lean into that, right? But I think it's dangerous when you lean only into the data,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's important to make those informed decisions and to be able to utilize that data in the appropriate way. But there is so much more than meets the eye oftentimes, right? And so on the subjective side of things, where it is a little bit more qualitative and it's harder to quantify, first and foremost, we have to spend the time with our coaches, with our scholar athletes, in their day-to-day lives to get a better idea of what that looks like. But there are some key indicators when you're looking at community involvement, when you're looking at involvement on campus. Some of those service hours might be a key indicator of how we're approaching the time that we have with our scholar athletes. And so it's using some of those data points to be able to say we can look at data, we could set a goal for the amount of community service hours that we want a team to perform, right? But it's also in how are they going about the service hours, where are their hearts and their minds and their attitudes set when they're committing to these community service hours. And again, that's a little bit harder to discern through, but I think it gets easier when you get to know your coaches, when you get to know your scholar athletes, when you're having those conversations and utilizing your scholar athlete surveys, when you're utilizing your coach feedback loops to be able to inform those decisions is really important.
One of the interesting things of your strategic plan, as we've talked a bunch about it so far, is the Institute for Virtue-Based Athletics that you guys have.
Yeah.
I'll hand up, I haven't seen one of those before. I imagine there may be other institutions that have a similar thing, maybe with a different name. What does that look like in practice, and how is that beneficial for the athletic department?
Great question. The easiest analogy that I could give you, Anthony, would be professional development, but internally focused on our coaches, right? So obviously we put a premium on how we're approaching athletics. We've got a very unique stance on how we want to see athletics rightly ordered. And so the university, when we made this commitment to greatness through virtue and approaching athletics in this way, understood in a very intimate way that if we're not on the front end of forming our coaches and giving them the tools and keeping this top of mind, we can't just expect it to happen naturally, right? We often say, like, you can't give away something you don't yourself have, and that's probably a postulate of coaching, and we approach that the same way for our coaches. And so the Institute for Faith, Virtue, and Sport it's a 3-day, again, if you want to say professional development opportunity that all athletic staff at the University of Mary participate in. And so it's a mixture of internal processes and procedures and curriculum from our classes, from our athletic strategic plan, focusing on how we're creating a relationship with our scholar athlete, what the scholar athlete experience looks like, and how we're moving in the direction of best practice as a department. And sometimes, again, that's internally focused. Sometimes that's pulling from our coaches themselves to present, and then at other times it is bringing outside resources, to campus. And so the crux of that is formation for coaches, and so it is open to coaches from across the country, from the region. We'll have high school coaches that'll attend from time to time, different faith-based institutions that'll come. We've got a really good partnership with NetView, and so they've sent some professionals and staff and faculty from other institutions to come observe the institute from time to time, and so it really is. It's a really unique opportunity, but again, that's maybe the best way that I can describe that to someone that maybe isn't familiar or hasn't heard of it. Is again, it's our opportunity to form. It's a formation exercise for our coaches and for our athletic staff members.
One of the other big things going on at UMary is the $45 million Marauders Athletic Complex that you guys have in progress. Where do we sit right now with that entire project, and when it is complete, the vision for the impact of that facility is what? Right.
So we broke ground on the athletics and master landscaping portion of our Vision 2030 master plan for the university in April of 2025, right? So rewind a little bit, maybe helpful to understand to the second part of your question. 2015, the university announced a 15-year master capital campaign, right? And so in that capital campaign had three different phases of Vision 2030, where we would completely expand and kind of reimagine what the University of Mary would look like. And so it's hats off to our administration and to our board, both at that time and now through this transition, to be able to have a vision for what the University of Mary can and should be, and what that would look like on a very grand scale, and then all the way down to a very granular scale. And so we're in phase 2 with the athletics and master landscaping portion. Again, excited to be able to make good on that promise that we had made over a decade ago on this vision to bring Marauders Athletics, at least a portion of Marauders Athletics, back to campus. And so the dirt work's done. Utilities are pulled through. Footings are poured. We might, Anthony, have the nicest parking lot right now in the upper Midwest. And so we're excited about that. Some of our roadways and parking lots, again, got some needed attention and care this summer because of this project. And so I left North Dakota yesterday, and teams are still pouring concrete and out there working. The grading and dirt work's done. Retaining wall, I think, is what they're working on right now. And so we've been blessed with a really mild winter up north in comparison to years in the past. And so as long as the weather holds out, those crews are going to continue to work. We may have to pause at some point this winter, depending on the weather, and Mother Nature will decide if and when that is. But as soon as we're able to get back in the ground in the spring, we'll continue, and the construction phase is not going to stop until we open in 2027. And so we're right on schedule with where we had kind of hoped to be and planned to be when we broke ground, which is no small thing in today's day and age for capital projects. And it's also a reflection of not only of our our architects and our contractor and subs, but also of our benefactors, the university staff and faculty, the students for sticking with us through a time of construction and transition. And so you mentioned kind of what's the vision of that facility, right? As a small faith-based institution at the Division II level, we simply cannot afford to build facilities for the sake of building facilities, right? And we can't have any facility on our campus, right? Not just athletics, whole stop, that only serves a single purpose and could never have the flexibility to serve another purpose. And so I think what you'll see with our facility is that every single one of our spaces is going to be multi-purpose and multi-use, right? When you look at our research and performance center Center, you're going to be able to see a clear partnership and synergy between Marauders Athletics and our St. Gianna School of Health Sciences, which is our largest school on campus. The Research and Performance Center is going to have certainly scholar-athlete facing facilities, from locker rooms and coaches' offices, recruiting lounges, sports medicine, sports performance, sports nutrition. All of those are going to be, a focal point of that facility. But when you move upstairs, you're going to see game day suites that the 5 or 6 home games that were guaranteed each year by the NSIC are going to be really elite level suite style experiences for our fans and benefactors and the supporters of the university. But for the other 360 or so days of the year, those spaces are going to function as classrooms, right? And so hats off to our architects, hats off to our administration on campus for having a vision like that, but then also being able to be creative so that on game day it doesn't feel like I'm in a classroom watching a football game. And then when we're delivering instruction, that it doesn't feel like I'm in a suite with a whiteboard on the wall or rolled in, right? So to be able to craft a space like that is no small thing. Biomechanics lab, game day operations, it's all going to be included there. Brand new football stadium on campus. We're excited about the largest air-supported dome in the region. Obviously, for our part of the country, that's pretty important. And so, it'll be over 100,000 square feet, 85 feet at its apex, and so it's going to be a facility that's going to be used year-round, right? And so you again mentioned the vision for that. Not only do we want to see that positively impact Marauders athletics, which it will. It's going to touch every single one of our varsity sports and club programs. It's going to impact all 500 of our scholar athletes that we've got on campus. It's going to breathe life into our general student body and the general campus. It'll be a place for intramurals. It'll be a place for gathering. Obviously, we've got 2,500 fans on campus every single Saturday, Friday night for soccer and Sundays and softball, baseball. We've got a fan base on campus that right now has to travel into town to be able to watch the Marauders compete, and so we're really excited about what that looks like. And then again, the university exists to serve, right? We're here to serve people and to serve our community. The sisters that founded the university had that vision that they came and got off the train in Bismarck where the railroad tracks ended at the time, and they just got off the train and started serving people. And so for us to be able to welcome the Bismarck-Mandan community and the region to campus is something that's really important to the university. And so when those spaces aren't being utilized by Marauders Athletics or the University of Mary as a whole, we see those spaces as shared use spaces and as programmable green spaces for our partners in the community, and whether that's youth sports or fine arts, the opportunities kind of are endless in there, and so we're really excited about what that means.
Excellent. A lot to look forward to for the UMary Marauders. Marcus, thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Anthony, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time.